Well, we have a lot on today's agenda, so we'll go ahead and get started. If you haven't already, feel free to use the chat box on the bottom of your screen. It's a little chat bubble to introduce yourself. Tell us where you're coming in from. It's great to see folks in the chat. I see people from Pennsylvania, Texas, all over. So wonderful. Keep on introducing yourself. My name is Paige Picorni. I'm a program manager here at Share Our Strength, the No Kid Hungry campaign. And today, we're so excited for you to be joining today's webinar, Staffing Strategies for Your Meal Program, strategies and tips to improve hiring, operations, and staff retention. So, as we all know, labor shortages have impacted programs across the country, but we hope today's webinar will provide a few strategies and tips to help mitigate these challenges. Next slide. Just a couple housekeeping notes. The webinar is being recorded so that it can be accessible after the session on our website, and it will also be shared out with the slide deck from today. We'll also have time at the end of the presentation to hear from you. So please place all questions you have for our panel here today in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. It should be to the left of the chat box. Any questions that we do not get to, we'll follow up after the webinar. We also have the closed captioning option for our session today. So if you would like to use that function, it's also at the bottom of your page. And we encourage you to use the chat box throughout the session to engage with one another, with the panelists. There's a variety of people on the call with a lot of cumulative experience with these programs and with staffing specifically. So let's have some crowdsourcing of thoughts, ideas. We absolutely want to hear from you. Now for today's agenda. Next slide. After some welcome and introductions, we'll get to the strategies and tips. We've bucketed these into three categories: recruitment and hiring, operation modifications, and staff retention. And as I mentioned, there'll be ample time for Q&A, so please use that Q&A box freely. We definitely want to hear from you and make sure the webinar is as useful to you as possible by answering any and all questions. And then at the end, we'll include some additional resources and plug some future webinars. Next slide. So the No Kid Hungry campaign is a campaign of Share Our Strength. We are committed to ending childhood hunger in the United States by helping launch and improve programs that give kids the food they need to thrive. Next slide. And I sit on our Center for Best Practices team. So the Center for Best Practices provides information, tools, and resources designed to end childhood hunger. And I encourage you to check out our website, bestpractices.nokidhungry.org. There's a bevy of resources. Some might say too many. I disagree. All from everywhere from summer meals, after school meals, SNAP. We cover it all. And last, before we dive in, I just want to send out a huge thank you to all of the providers on the call. The past 2 years have not been easy, and we appreciate all that you do to make sure children have the nutrition they need to learn and thrive. So thank you. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker for today. Walter Campbell is the Executive Director of Nutrition Services for Charleston County School District. Walter and his team are responsible for maintaining a balanced budget while serving nutritious meals to a student population of over 48,000 students in 75 facilities that spans over 1,300 square miles along the coast. His team manages one of the largest summer meals programs, supper programs, Head Start programs, and fruits and vegetable programs in the second largest school district in the state of South Carolina. He's busy, is a succinct part of it. Before joining Charleston County School District, he spent 23 years in the food and beverage industry and 3 years in budget and finance with the federal government. Well, Walter grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, where he earned a business degree from the College of Charleston and a master's in business from Citadel. Walter and his team's driving purpose is to keep students at the heart of their work in everything they do. His belief is that habits shape our identity, so be sure to build good habits. We are so excited to have you, Walter.
Well, thank you.
With that, pass it over to you.
Awesome. Good afternoon. I appreciate the intro there. I was going to say a few things about that, but we do cover 1,300 square miles in the 75 plus facilities, and we serve everything from baby formula to our early Head Start kiddos to South Carolina grown hydroponic lettuce in all of our schools. We'll probably buy almost $1 million worth of hydroponic lettuce just this year. So it brings dollars back into South Carolina. Pre-pandemic, we had about 52 of our facilities, our schools, that were CEP. And we expect that we'll continue that in the next school year. When we're talking about hiring, we plan way ahead of time. We call it contingency planning. So we want to be in a position in our operation so that if we don't want to have to stop in mid-crisis. So it's plan. You know, I always look at, like, when you have a football team, their win didn't occur on that football team. Their win occurred when they were practicing. And some of y'all might know Dabo Sweeney. One of his favorite sayings is, don't find ways to beat yourself. And you're going to beat yourself if you don't prepare ahead of time. So we do a lot of preparing. One of my other famous quotes is from Abraham Lincoln. He used to say, at least he said this, that, you know, give him 6 hours to chop down a tree, and he'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening his axe. So let's take the time to really prepare. And you can go to the next slide. And in preparing, what we look at is we have a couple things that we've done. We have a standing weekly open house. And the first time I brought this idea up at the beginning of the school year, folks went, you know, my team was like, I don't know. So every Wednesday, I said, every Wednesday from 3 to 5, we're going to have an open house. It's worked beautifully. There has not been a week this entire school year that we have not hired somebody. We hired 2 people about a week or so ago that hadn't even put an application in yet. Wasn't sure how to put an application. One lady who came in, she just forgot to hit submit on the application, so we never saw it. So folks can come in whether they fill out an application or not, and we'll interview them. And it has really helped us from a retention standpoint and finding new employees. We also quit using advertising in the newspaper. Really wasn't working for us. We used Facebook, and we hired a local professional, and they figured out a way. I don't know how a landing page works, but they figured out a way to have a landing page that would pop up. If somebody hits that landing page, it automatically sends an email to my administrative assistant so she can reach out and contact that person. So all of a sudden that person has a connection with that apartment versus if they would just, put in the application. So a connection is made there. Another thing that we've done is about once a quarter, we send out a postcard to a reminder to our employees that, hey, we're still looking for folks if you know of anybody. And it's a very small investment. We hired one lady who happened to be over at one of our team members' houses and saw the card sitting on her kitchen counter and said, hey, y'all looking for people? She didn't even tell them about it. She saw the card. The investment in that card itself has paid off just finding that one person. We do a weekly drawing. We have an 8-minute meeting every Friday. Now, the first time I brought this up, my team goes, what do you mean 8-minute meeting? I said, 8-minute Zoom meeting every Friday with the managers. And if their team wants to watch, they can watch. But keep it to 8 minutes, because if you're going longer than that, it's going to be hard to get our team members on a Friday to come to an 8-minute meeting at 8:45. But the point is, we did it every Friday. And then part of that meeting, if folks want to have given referrals, we do a drawing, we give out a gift card. We use points from different companies to get the gift cards, and we give a gift card. And so that kind of creates some momentum. People get excited, whether they win or not, they're excited somebody won. We put together a hiring video, and we also put together a thank you video, and we put that on social media. And that's just to kind of build a buzz, because some folks might not even want to hire or come to our department to apply for a job, but they see it and they go, hey, you know what they're doing is really good. I had a lady call me this week after she saw our thank you video, and she goes, look, I'm not looking for a job, but I have a friend that's looking for a job. And I really appreciate just the fact that y'all put a thank you video together. It had the superintendent on it, had my boss on it, had teachers on it, all saying thank you. So that helped us find another person. Now, you can also look at high school students, especially during the summer. We just found out today we've got 5 high school students going to be working with us this summer, which is awesome. And then during the school year, you can look at seniors. A lot of seniors, some of them only have 1 course left because they're so ahead and advanced. So look at seniors, and you say, well, you know, senior doesn't want to work on the school day. Well, maybe it's that they don't want to work the school day. Maybe they just don't want to work in front of the house where their friends see them. So maybe you can have them working back at the house and prep in the morning. Some way you can use them. Or another idea was, let's say you have a busy high school, and most of us do. And maybe you got 2 high school students that say, hey, we'll work in the afternoon, and they prep for the next day. Or maybe your district has a intern program that you can help sponsor an intern program. Another thing that we do is we call employees after they've left the job. It might be a week, 2 weeks, a month. We call the employees. We just got back a former manager just because we called and said, how you doing? And she goes, you know, I was thinking about you guys. I want to come back. And we're like, yes. And then we had a former operator front line. We called her up and she goes, well, I'm so busy, I can't come. We still have to go through the interview process. That just has to happen for HR purposes. So what do? She couldn't come in. We did a Zoom meeting. You make it happen. But next slide. So when someone does decide to leave, you know, we say, most people go, why are you leaving? We don't ask that question. What we ask is, why aren't you staying? Totally different question. You think it's going to give the same information, but what happens is when you ask that question, why aren't you staying? You find out, well, you know, I really didn't get along with my manager. Or it might be some other reason, but that person still has potential. And maybe that potential can be realized by moving them to another school if you have a place to move them to. And we've done that before. And that, again, saves employees. So you're losing fewer employees and having to bring on new ones. We call our retirees to see if they want to work a few hours. We have a couple of them that do. And again, it might be a small pool, but still gives you another avenue. And not just our retirees. If you have a teacher, it's amazing. Retired teachers, if they've been in a school for 25, 35 years, they love to come back to their school. So if we happen to be talking to a retired teacher and they go, well, I really only want to go to this school. And we say, well, we don't have anything right now, but as soon as we do, we'll call you. And it's worked. Again, maybe you only talk about 2 or 3, but it's another avenue. And then from a retention standpoint, saying thank you to your employees. I know we did the video. We've done an ice cream day, which is amazing to pull off. We did Chick-fil-A day. We did Krispy Kreme donut day. And then that 8-minute meeting that I talk about every Friday, that has proven invaluable as a connection with the employees and with our managers. And it's not just communicating with them. You're actually connecting with them in 8 minutes. You know, maybe it goes a little bit longer. That's okay. But they know every Friday they're going to hear from you via video. You know, you can use a temp firm. And I was just talking to my boss today. 4 or 5 years ago, out of our 400 employees, we had 160 temps. You know how many temps we have now? 14. Because we saw it change it. We wanted all our team under us. And I'm not saying you can't use a temp firm. We just wanted to change the model. Because people wanted to be part of CCSD. And even though a temp firm they weren't getting that same feeling and the same ownership. Now you can use a temp firm, but make sure you're paying a good rate of pay. Don't pay necessarily what the temp firm is. Negotiate a little bit higher rate of pay. And there might be a state contract out there, so you don't have to go out and bid. The other area we use, again, this is a small area to find employees. We use a disabilities board. Now, what happens, the disabilities board will actually bring the individual in. They'll come in, they'll help coach them and show them job skills, and then they'll let them go. And so let's say 3 weeks down the road, there's an issue with the person that you got from the disabilities board. They'll come back and coach them again. I don't know if you have a disability board in your state. Again, just another avenue. Thinking outside the box, we've been to weekend farmers markets. And you're like, well, how does that help? It's a way to make it happen. You go out and maybe just giving out apples and you talk to people and say, hey, we're looking for folks. You have your computer right there. If you need it, you're not forcing them to want to be part of your organization. And they say, yeah, I'm interested. And you go ahead and fill out the application right there. Now, we've only got maybe one or two that way, but it's one or two more than we had. One that I don't think I put on here on this list was breaking down language barriers. What we found is we have a Hispanic population coming in, but we weren't getting folks who were bilingual applying for jobs. So we went out looking for folks who were bilingual, and we hired them for two of our schools. Then we went out and folks that maybe weren't that fluent in English started hiring those folks to work at these two busy schools. So it opened up a whole entire new pool of candidates for our team. And then it really, really got us, engaged with the community. One last thing here I would say is always look at ways to have fun with your team. Whether it's at Halloween, you dress up yourself, it may sound silly, but they see you as more genuine. And get involved, or if they do something that's fun, go out there and do it with them. Just don't say, oh, send me a picture of what you did. They might be having a party at their school. Go out there and get involved in it. But because having fun, again, makes it very genuine. Okay, next slide. See you again, Walter. That's all great. I've got districts out there that folks I've talked to the entire year, they've been 20% of their team, 20% of their team short. And you go, so what am I going to do there, Walter? I'm just getting nobody coming in the door. So before this whole pandemic started, we were at like maybe 17, 18, what they call meals per labor hour. And that's how we budgeted everything, was 17, 18 meals per labor hour. But I felt that the staffing shortage was coming. How could we go to 21 meals per labor hour? And everybody said, no way. And I don't know how many of you guys have seen The Founder. It's the McDonald's movie and how McDonald's started up. But if you ever watch it, it's a great movie. If you watch it, they started out on a basketball court and they designed how everything was going to flow. So we basically took down how everything flows in our kitchen, what kind of packaging we were using, how we can make things go faster. And then the pandemic hit. And we were set to increase our meals per labor hour. Now we're coming out the other end of the pandemic. Our meals per labor hour is 21 plus meals per labor hour. So there, even though you're having a staffing shortage, we need fewer people. We do use volunteers, whether it's in school or outside school. And you need to be part of the volunteer system too. You need to be out there. But we've got, my CFO is volunteered because I asked him. My chief operating officer, he's volunteered multiple times because I asked him. And the reason being is when the school needed teachers in the classroom, folks from our team went in the classroom. So again, you create this community. I've got principals now that will still help out online or go in the kitchen and help out. They will do anything they can to help out. Now, as I said before, when you go from one end of the district to the other, it takes an hour. And I've got pockets where our office is right here, it's easy to find people. But 30 minutes away, I have never been able to find people. It's very, very difficult. So what we decided, and this could help with your labor shortage, is that we would have folks come to our office. We got activity buses 2 years ago, and 2 activity buses, and we would transport people all the way over to the area where we couldn't find people. And it worked beautiful. Benefit to our team, when they come here in the morning, they clock in. They get on the bus, they go to work, they get back on the bus, they come here and they clock out. They're actually getting hours worth of time on the bus, and they can be on their phone, whatever they want to do. And some of our team has been doing this for 2 years. But if you have areas where it's really hard to find folks, then use this method. Now, what the district did, they liked it so much, I went to the board and said, hey, instead of using activity buses, can we get some really nice vans? And it just came in this week. And the team is so excited. So it was kind of payback, and believe it or not, it did not come out of my budget. So I appreciate our board. The other thing you want to look at in time when you have staffing shortage is, I think, increased potential. I use the example, and I did not know this, but apparently if you take a shark and you put it in an aquarium, it will grow to the size of whatever aquarium that you put it in. So sometimes we take our staff and we put them in an aquarium. That's all they can do. Whereas they may have more potential. Maybe they can be an assistant manager. Maybe they can do more than one person can do more, 1.5 people can do, or 2 people can do. But look at your folks, and there's some out there have unbelievable potential. And the 5th one I put on here is leadership training. So on these 8-minute meetings, we do leadership training. When our officers go into schools, they talk about leadership training. And I end every meeting with leadership training, because if we train our folks, then they're going to be able to train their folks better, increase their potential, especially during a staffing shortage. I can tell you right now, 400 employees that we need to run the operation, we're down 22. And it's been about that way the entire year because we put all these things in place. Or we can go to the next slide. But these are some things that we do that have really helped. We stand up and we're seen. If you want to impact your staffing and retention, stand up and be seen. Be in your schools. I have been in schools more in the last 2 years than I've probably been in the last 4 years. And being there, not just walking around like with a clipboard, but being there, talking with your folks, listening to them, finding out what's going on, and working on the line. I've worked on the line. My bosses worked on the line. I've had executive directors from other departments working on the line. Be out there and be seen. And so what's happened is, I'd say 3 years ago, if I called a manager and said, I need somebody to go help out at this other school, I might get a little pushback. It is zero pushback, because they know that I'm out here, my team's out there, and they're willing to help. They see what's going on and that it is a team. So we've created a team. So number 2, I put on here, embrace brutal optimism. The first time I told this to my team, they went, what the heck do you mean by embrace brutal optimism? We need to let our team know what is going on, but we're going to help carry it on our backs. And this is what we're doing about it. Don't hide anything from your team. We used to have one of our officers here, Joe Pettit. Some of you may have seen him speak at different conferences. And he had this phrase, it was called, we got this. And all of a sudden I saw managers texting me and go, we got this, we got this. So that's another phrase that you can put in is we got this. And your team needs to know that. So be brutally optimistic. We're going to get there, but let them know what's going on. And that kind of leads to the next one is stick to the facts. If you're talking to your team and you're out there and you're being seen, make sure that you stick to the facts, especially if you think that we're in a crisis or a hiring crisis or whatever. Let them know. And then they're more willing to help share and say, yeah, I can send so-and-so over there to help out. It becomes a much, much more positive note. Number 4, I put on here, tell a story. I could probably talk about this for an hour page, but I'm going to narrow it down. What I mean by this is that you can have slides on participation numbers all day long, but a story to your district, to your board, to your team goes a lot further. And sometimes you can tell that story in just a few words. I mean, you look back, I was trying to think of an example. Let's say back when President Kennedy was around and he said, we're going to go to the moon, land on the moon and return. And within 10 years or before the end of the decade, I believe that's what it was. That was a crying call. People stood behind that. Every time I talk to our team or I'm out in the school, before I leave, I say, we value you. They've heard me say that over and over and over. And some folks might go, well, that sounds so corny. As long as you're genuine. I also have a story that I won't tell now, but it's called the Sarah story. It's about one student that every time I have a chance to talk to a board member or even folks on our team, I tell this story because it is one student. If we're impacting one student, we're doing the job. But in our case, we're impacting 49,000 students. This last, number 5, I've got on my little list here. The bottom line comes second. And I can tell you right now, I came from a finance background and the bottom line used to always come first. The bottom line comes second. If you do everything else, if you make sure your team knows that they're secure and they're cared for and they're valued, that you value them, there's less of a chance of them leaving. Now, this doesn't mean you don't hold them accountable. You do hold them accountable. People want to be held accountable, but they also want to feel safe. And I think that's what we've really, I know that's what we've done over the last 2 years. If we really made our team feel safe. This last one I put on here, when I told my team this, let's link the ordinary to the extraordinary, they were like, what the heck does that mean? If you look 3 years ago, people would say, well, we just serve food. No, we don't. We serve the community. You need to make sure that when you're out there talking that, hey, our folks serve the community and they make an impact on all these kids and all the community. And our teachers, our principals have seen that. And I've seen more. It's not like, oh, nutrition services up by themselves. They're part of the school. And that's an increased overall morale, which reduces folks leaving your business. But really get behind your team would be the final thing I would say. I greatly appreciate you let me talk for a few minutes here. My biggest point, go out there and be seen, be in your schools. I was today. It was fun, and it gets around. Thank you, Paige.
Wow, well, I don't want to come after that, Walter. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll get back to Walter in just a little bit. If you have questions for him, please do put them in the Q&A. And as I mentioned, my name is Paige McCorney. I'm going to go over actually a few points from a conversation I had with another person working in accidentally muted myself. Sorry about that. These points come from a conversation with Constance Moore, who's the compliance officer at the YMCA of Memphis in the Mid-South. So go ahead and next slide. Awesome. So I'll talk a little bit about strategies for staff retention. So first and foremost, acknowledge staff for a job well done. Walter talked a little bit about this, and there's many ways you can do it, and whatever works best with you and the culture you have at your school or community center. So an employee shout out in the organizational newsletter, or even a public shout out during a team huddle or weekly all staff meeting, as Walter mentioned, or a simple round of applause on the public intercom at the school or YMCA or center that you're operating in. The second point is encouraging growth, both professionally and personally. So talking through the purpose and next steps of a job or role and really facilitating what that person wants from their time with your organization, and working with them to explain the availability of growth potential. How can one move up the ranks? Walter talked a lot about potential and not boxing people into a certain job if they can grow further. And creating a plan with staff that encourages growth. So succeeding the task at hand, but also building relationships and helping others in the team, providing opportunities for professional development and a pathway to promotion and additional responsibility. Also, ask the employee what they want. What do they want out of their current job? How can you help them achieve their goals inside and outside the work time? The third, offer a token of appreciation. It can cost nothing, or it can cost a small amount. It can be as simple as a free casual day coupon or an extra 30 minutes of lunchtime. The fourth bucket is friendly competition. So making things fun and encouraging participation. So who can sign into work on 5 minutes early for 30 days, and that person might get a prize, or who's caught doing something good, like helping a coworker pick up a heavy box or picking up trash off the floor, and rewarding that person. So kind of playing tag on who's doing something nice. And then fifth, fostering understanding and buy-in for the organizational mission. Walter talked a little bit about this, but you're out there for not just feeding food, but you're serving children. I think I got them mixed up. You're not serving food, you're feeding children, and making sure that your employees know that you have a culture of mission-driven work, keeping children and families at the center of messaging and reminding staff that their work is nourishing kids. And it can be as simple as a written sign of your mission statement in your office or around the kitchen, and saying it out loud at meeting closeouts. So those are a couple points from, like I said, Constance. And Walter, do you want to add anything else on staff retention? Oh, you're on mute, Walter.
And come off mute. So to piggyback on that, in our 8-minute meeting every week, we do recognize birthdays and years of service, which has been a big plus.
Great. Okay. So moving right along to Q&A. Next slide, please. Great. So I have a couple. So we're going to have time. Please put that your questions in the Q&A box. I've seen a couple come through, but please have more. We have so much time for this. But I'm going to be I'm going to steal a little bit of Walter's time and ask my questions first. So Walter, the strategies you've outlined are so thoughtful and also comprehensive. For child nutrition directors and managers who are short on capacity, where would you recommend they start?
Good question. I think, folks say that you can't, they'll say I can't find time. Well, you need to make time. And so, that 3 to 5 in the afternoon, would I like to be doing something else? Yeah, maybe. But that 3 to 5 in the afternoon every Wednesday is where we make time to greet potential new employees. So I would say really making time if you don't have the capacity at that point. I realize some folks are a lot smaller than us and don't have the capacity. Let's say another idea might be, again, start small. So let's say you only do one of those things that we talked about, and then you and the first time you do it might be uncomfortable. So you might do the 8-minute Friday meeting, might be uncomfortable. Or it may be that you step back for at least a second or a weekend and write down why are we losing people, and why we can't retain people. And maybe something in your organization where you haven't built that team spirit. I know that sounds hard, but I'd start there, making sure you don't have a really high turnover. And then if you don't have a high turnover, then work on, because you might not have the money to put into Facebook to do those Facebook ads, but you might have the money to do a postcard that goes to all your employees. Or if your district might be, like our district did, a whole front page on the website. I think if you have a communications department in your district or whatever organization you're with, just let them know, hey, we need your help. They might not even think that you need their help. So let them know you need your help. So I would start, that's where I'd start. I would start, maybe do the postcard, very inexpensive. If you don't have enough funds, or get with your communications department and see if they'll help you out.
Yeah, that's such a great point. The larger organization might not even know the issues that your department's facing. Great. So you have a lot of really great strategies. Where did you kind of pick these up? Where did you learn them and develop them throughout your time as a director?
I would say, I don't know what it is, but a few years ago, I said, I don't get it why directors think they're in competition with each other, because we're not. So I talk to directors all the time. We formed a little group. Then when I have the opportunity to partner with No Kid Hungry, I'm like, oh, there's another group I can learn from. So learning from other directors around the country or other organizations around the country of what they're doing, that's where most of the 8-minute meeting, I didn't think that up. I read it in a book. I'm like, hey, that's a great idea. And their reasoning was because nobody wanted to go longer than 8 minutes on a Friday. So I'm like, okay, let's try it. And maybe you go longer, but I know every Friday we've got an 8-minute meeting and it moves fast. But really talking to other directors, and it doesn't necessarily have to be within nutrition services. It could be a retiree, somebody in your area who can be your mentor. Hey, I need some help recruiting people. And I don't know, in our area, we have a lot of retirees that there's a couple of them that I do talk to. One being my dad, because he retired from a big organization. So I pick his brain all the time. But there's some other folks I do pick their brains all the time too. And it can be somebody who's brand new in the business, pick their brain. So really going out there and talking to other people, that's where we learn most of this stuff. not everything works.
Mm.
It might not work for your area. And I've got 100 ideas, maybe 2 of them will work, but at least I got 100 ideas.
Love that. All right, well, I have a question from the audience. How do you correct a good worker's excessive time off?
Okay, so one, what we do is if somebody is initially, a manager might call, hey, could be a manager that has excessive time off. We go out there and talk to them and say, hey, we hired you on and we expect you to be here. And it may be something in their home life that's causing it. Like in one case, the parent said, I got to get my kids to school and I can't get them to school on time. And that's why I'm running late. So in that particular case, we said, okay, if we move your time from 7:30 to 8, are you gonna be here on time? Yeah, I can do that. So it's just talking to the employee and she was able to get to work on time. That will not always work. There may be good employees that I hate to say that you may have to help out, but it's them helping themselves out of it. If they're not showing up for work, that can be that can fester. Then other employees think, oh, I don't have to show up for work on payday Friday. And then you get more employees taking off. So we address it immediately. And we do is we call a letter. I don't like it calling a write-up. We call a letter, hey, look, we notice your excessive absences. These are the times that we appreciate you being at work. But then we give them times. You ask the question, why can't you be to work on time? Once you ask that question, then you need to be quiet. And I tell you right now, there'll be a lot of silence between you and the person you're talking to. But ask the question, why can't you show up on time? And then don't say a word. And you might find out a lot about why they're not showing up on time. Sometimes they might not care. If they don't care, then they don't need to be part of your organization.
That's great. I have a couple more questions,
Okay.
but definitely want to remind the audience we have plenty of time. So if you do have any burning questions for Walter, please do use the Q&A box and we'll get to those. So the pandemic changed everything. Everyone knows this. How did you approach staff? What did your approach to staffing and management change during the pandemic? And if so, how?
Yes, absolutely, 110%. I had already started making some changes. In the last 2 years, I probably read more books than I've read in the previous 20 years, all on leadership and developing habits and trying to change the culture in an organization. Before, I think that if I was sitting in a meeting and somebody said something that may have got to me, I might have, I wouldn't call it snap, but reacted. And now I take the time to take a deep breath and say, okay, how do I want to address this? So for me, that's one way it's changed. And then allowing folks in the last 2 years, allowing folks to make mistakes. I think, because again, not reeling them into they're in a small fish tank, but letting them, expand. And if they make a mistake, that's okay. And I've had so many folks say, hey, I want to try this. And they try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. Or managers now, I say, hey, look, if you get an idea, let's go with it. You can let us know, but let's go with it. Stick with the menu we have. But if you want to come up with another menu idea, go ahead and do it. And our managers have gotten extremely creative, especially when we have shortages in our supply in some cases. So let me see how else we've changed. I think in our, the biggest one, again, I have to go back to this, is really engaging employees. Sending them out a thank you note, being available. So don't look at your phone and oh, that's Miss Inez, I'm not picking that phone up. Pick up the phone no matter what. And I can tell you right now, our department, as far as answering the phone goes and replying back to people, is the #1 department in this district for doing that, and it's paid off.
Thank you. couple questions from the audience again. This, excuse me, how do you compete with recruiting wise with other businesses, jobs that pay more?
That's because we pay well. So I knew to get folks on, we would have to increase our rate of pay. But to increase our rate of pay, we were going to have to also increase our meals per labor hour. So again, fewer people doing more. So that's why we set the systems up. Right now, I can tell you 84% of the folks that work for us make more than $15 an hour. Most of our folks start at $16.84. Our managers start at $24 an hour. We are extremely competitive in this market. Plus, they get health benefits. We give them 3 days of leave a year, even though they get all the other. I mean, there's a lot good to work for a school district. I mean, you don't have to work weekends, you don't have to work holidays. So we kind of got ahead of it. We increased the rate of pay, I think, starting at $24 for a manager and $16.84 for one of our frontline folks is pretty darn good. Plus benefits. Now, it's not great all over the country, but that's the reason we're extremely competitive. And then we have folks that, so what happened was when we hit $24 an hour, we had folks that maybe they weren't assistant manager for one of the grocery stores. And they went, well, wait a minute, I'm making $20 an hour at the grocery store. Because I'll go to work for you, I'll get benefits, and I'll still work some time at the grocery store because they still need me. I can tell you in the last probably 4 years, we've hired 15 Harris Teeter managers because of that. Because they like the hours, they can decide if I want to work, if I don't want to work. Not that Harris Teeter has a great program, but I'm just saying that Harris Teeter is a grocery store around here. I don't know if it's so countrywide, but we're very competitive. But to do that, we have to be very strategic with budgeting.
Any tips for that?
Oh, being strategic with budgeting?
Mm-hmm.
I have this phrase, it's called reduce to the ridiculous. I know where every single penny is. So most people say, oh, I'm budgeting X amount for labor. No, I know every employee, every hour, every benefit, right down to the final penny. So we'll have our budget done. I'm getting the labor part of it from the district sometime in the next few weeks. And so it'll be done by the end of March. And it'll show every single penny. And I understand you go, well, Walter, you're projecting your participation. We're pretty good at projecting our participation now. And if we're not there, we want to go out and find out why we're not there. But backing into it, knowing where every single penny is. On top of the budget, there's a little phrase that, and it says there's no such thing as a free lunch. There is, but in a budget, you still have a budget to work with. So really breaking down your budget penny by penny, and then when it doesn't, you realize it doesn't work, you go, okay, where can we cut it, or where can we make adjustments? We serve, and it's expensive, we serve whole muscle chicken, hydroponic lettuce, and we're making the budget balance.
That's great. You spoke a little bit about meals per labor hour. What would you consider a good goal for that? Well,
again, you back into it. Once you make your budget, you go, okay, if you want to have a zero-based budget, once you base your budget, how do you back into that? And yours might be 18 meals per labor hour. And you have to understand that not all schools are going to be exactly the same. If you've got a small school with 100 kids, you go, well, I just can't. You could put 1 or 2 people there, but then somebody's out sick and maybe they're way out in the country, so you might need 3 people. Although when you do meals per labor hour, you don't need to. You need to put more people in. It doesn't match up. So some schools are going to be higher meals per labor hour. Some schools are going to be lower meals per hour, but it averages out to 21. But I must say almost all of our schools are over 21. We got some at 24 meals per labor hour, but looking at what you need for that school, and then are they working efficiently? We use, I say the model from McDonald's, the founder. I walk into a school, and when you see somebody pick up a pan 2 or 3 times, you're going, that's not efficient. So maybe you go in there and you watch it for a little while and say, okay, this is the reason they need a 4th person, when they really don't. So looking at the efficiencies within your school.
I feel like they need to make a movie about you, Walter.
No, no, I don't think so.
Optimizing staffing in a
Thank
district. I'd watch it. I'd watch it. Great. Oh, the questions are coming in. Is your staff under a collective bargaining agreement?
No, and I realize I've got some friends in the nutrition services arena that are under a collective bargaining agreement, and their fringe benefits, like ours are running about 42% out of every dollar, and theirs are running 50 to 60%. For those of you that have a collective bargaining agreements, it's tough. I mean, it is. There's no way I can't say it isn't.
Yeah. Another question about kind of time off. How would you handle a situation when a worker is stating they have a medical issue and they can't work, but they're out of leave?
Oh, they're out of leave?
Mm-hmm.
So, and every state's going to be a little bit different. In the state of South Carolina, we have FMLA, so they can apply for FMLA and they can be out. What we do as a benefit is we continue paying their health benefits till they come back, and then they reimburse us for the health benefits. Have we gotten bitten sometimes doing that, and the employee eventually just leaves? Yes, but we're trying to take care of our employee while they're out, especially if they have a medical issue. Now, do we pay additional leave? No. What we do have is, and again, this is just our district, we do have a sick leave bank. So if somebody runs out of sick leave and people want to donate sick leave to an employee, we can. And everybody in this office, I can tell you, has done it before. So we do try to take care of each other.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I've the sick leave bank. So I have a question that's probably on many people's minds. It's not necessarily related to today's, well, in some ways it is, but I will just go ahead and get to it. It's on waivers. So I'm going to actually ask my colleague, Carolyn Vega-Waite, who is with us. I'll let her introduce herself actually, but she is an expert on this and will be able to share with us some of the regulatory landscape.
Thank you, Paige. So hello, everyone. I'm Carolyn Vega, Associate Director of Policy here with the No Kid Hungry campaign. And I was on waiting for this question. I feel like it's the elephant in the room right now. But unfortunately, it's not very funny. It's not looking good, as Elizabeth alluded to in the chat. As many of you know, we have been pushing Congress to extend USDA's authority to issue nationwide child nutrition waivers through the summer and next school year. Currently, USDA's authority is set to expire June 30th. And despite the enormous effort, probably with many of you listening to this webinar today and with so many national partners, we were not successful in getting Congress to include that language in the omnibus appropriations bill text. And it does not look promising that it would be added at this point. We are not done fighting yet, though. We're continuing to push Congress, looking for other ways to potentially fix this. Also looking to USDA. Obviously they wouldn't have this nationwide waiver authority as a given right now. But we're waiting to see what other guidance they may be able to put out to help with the transition. But in general, we would just encourage everyone to plan right now as if the waivers would not be available. So again, as much as we're going to try to keep fighting for this, just trying to be realistic about where we are right now with summer right around the corner. So happy to take any other questions that people may have. But that is unfortunately where we are right now.
Thank you, Carolyn. Walter, did you want to say anything about how your school district is handling the news and the transition?
From mute there. So we're going to work towards, as it was pre-pandemic, and when we didn't have all the waivers, and we've already started working on that. We've already informed the district as of today that that's the direction that we're going in. And again, I know we used to use this word at the beginning of the pandemic. We can pivot pretty easily if something changes. So we're ready for that. I mean, I wish it wasn't that way, but it is. But we still know we're going to serve a lot of kids this summer either way.
Absolutely, yes. And we'll absolutely, we being No Kid Hungry, be in touch with as many resources and information as we can do as we're all working through this news. And actually, that's a pretty great segue. Oh, I think we have, one last question, and then we'll get to additional resources. And I think we have enough time. So Walter, this person's employees are exhausted from working through the pandemic and being so short-staffed. They have 200 openings right now. Do you have any tips on retaining these employees who are just kind of over it and so tired?
Okay. I'll make sure I'm off mute. So one of the districts that, and it's anonymous, so I don't know if it's this district, but one of the districts that I talked to, they actually went to, and this is a tough call, but they went to one hot meal K through 12. So one hot meal a day, even in middle and high school. And that's pretty drastic, but when you're short that many people, that may be the avenue you have to go. Now, if you go that avenue, let's say it's pizza day, make sure you have the best darn pizza that there is. Or chicken sandwich day, it's the best chicken sandwich. So you basically take your menu and you have fewer menu items, but you make them the best possible menu items that you can put out there, especially if you're down that many folks. And the district that I'm thinking of, they were down a ton of folks, and that's exactly what they do. It was their only alternative. But make sure it's the best meal possible. Let me see if I think of anything else. As far as your team being exhausted, so this is just a total side note. See if your districts will let you use ESSER funds to give them a bonus. Just an idea. I don't know if they will. I'm just throwing that out there because that's what I'm going to try and do. I know, yeah, I can laugh out loud. I don't know if that'll happen, but hey, it's just an idea. The other thing is I go back to really being seen and really listening to your employees. I have folks that will call me on the weekends. If you know that somebody is struggling, call them. Or if that particular person is struggling, be out in their school that day, working with them side by side. Even if you only work an hour, walk in and say, look, I only got an hour, but I wanted to be with you today. I wish we could do more. We had put a day on the calendar that was supposed to be a day students would be in school. And our team was getting paid for that day. They were going to be there working. And the district, they're not going to be able to do next year. They made it an e-learning day. It's actually tomorrow. So instead of our employees being at training, I went to the board and said, hey, can I give our employees a day off? You talk about a win. That's a win. And not everybody can do that, but we gave them a day off. They'll have off tomorrow. That's just a few things, but I would say streamline your menu and ask your managers, with the best menu items that are the easiest to prepare. Now, if you're really stressed as far as staffing, then maybe you go to things that are pre-made. And there are a lot of good items out there that are clean label items that are pre-made. So there's less cooking in the school.
Those are some great strategies. Thank you, Walter. And also, I feel so bad. I did not say this in my introduction of you, but I do want to acknowledge that Walter is one of our 10 fantastic out of school time meals champions. So many people applied for this cohort of peer learning that No Kid Hungry ran. I'll put the link in the chat so you can kind of see who all the other champions are. But I'm so sorry, Walter, I didn't shout you out earlier. It's much deserved. I get the pleasure of working with Walter throughout this year through this role, and I've definitely been loving it. Great. So a few more kind of follow-ups. Next slide. We do have some resources around staffing. So that first one is just more general about staffing in any meal program. And then we also have a summer specific. And Walter mentioned a bit about hiring students, and this resource really gets into what that might look like for your summer meals program. We also have plenty of resources on navigating supply chain disruptions, as we know that's still a continuing issue for folks. And then also resources for rural communities and how to introduce local foods into their meal service. Next slide. And we're also super excited to announce our summer webinar series, Schools Out, Foods In. So our first session will be just in a few short weeks on March 30th at 3 p.m. and a very timely session. Hopefully we'll have a bit more details about what exactly operations will look like for summer, but we'll be having Donna Martin and Melissa Weisler talking through their strategies for navigating this transition to summer this year. And then you see here the other 4 webinars in April, May, June, and July. So dates for those will be coming out shortly, and we hope to see you there. Next slide. And that's just about it. Please stay in touch. You can subscribe to our newsletter where we promote all these new resources, webinars, grant opportunities, all that good stuff. And also, of course, the CVP website. I just want to say thank you so much to Walter and Carolyn also for hopping on. Walter, do you have any last words for folks on the call?
Oh, I greatly appreciate the time. If anybody, you can probably give up my information. If anybody wants to contact me, they're welcome to contact me to get any questions, because I'm sure that I can learn from them too.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. That about does it. And we'll be sending out the session recording and the slides after this, after we end. So thank you all, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.